Hey everyone, I'm Pam, owner of GVST Wellness in stclairshores, Michigan. We are a whole body, as in physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and energetic wellness center. We like to say we're a spiritual YMCA. Like, we have fitness classes such as step aerobics, Zumba, and yoga, but we also have tarot reading and astrology classes. We have one-on-one services such as massage, Reiki, and mental health therapy. What is unique about us is that our class packages and membership cover fitness classes, but also group therapy led by our resident therapist. When we said whole body wellness, we meant it. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at GVST Wellness or check us out at gvstwellness.com. Lastly, a huge shout out to our community at GVST Wellness. You make us what we are. And thank you to our sponsors, GVST Social Media, and our wonderful recording studio, Probably Awesome Records. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello and welcome to the GVST podcast. This is titled Yoga What? Or Yoga What? I don't know, up to you. This is the second episode, and you're joining three yogis of different yoga backgrounds and watching them compare or listening to them compare their styles. So we are going to be talking about quote-unquote traditional yoga, Kundalini, and lytyoga. If everyone would like to say hi, my name is Mallory, spelled like calorie.
I'm Mallory, not spelled like calorie, Mallory.
Yes.
And my name is Jessica.
All right, so what kind of yoga do you teach? I think quote-unquote traditional might be a good place to start. What's going on with that, not Mallory like calorie?
Well, I teach mostly vinyasa, hatha, and yinyoga. Vinyasa is kind of my main focus, which is one of the last forms of yoga to come out, but it did come from like traditional ashtangayoga.
Thank you. Jessica, what do you teach?
Kundalini Yoga.
Awesome. And I teach lytyoga. Let's see. If you would like to talk about the background of your particular style, jump on in there.
So vinyasa yoga originated from ashtanga yoga, which is a very kind of set in a specific way. You move a specific way each time, moving through the asana, the movements of yoga. And vinyasa developed from that, like in the early 1900s, as a way to just flow a little better, so the movements aren't so like rigid, and you're very much more concerned with like the flow between the movements as you are the movements themselves. And it's just not as rigid, and there's more freedom in vinyasa than there is in ashtanga.
I'm going to take that segue because lit, I think, is a vinyasa practice, but I did not teach yoga prior to lit. So a lot of times lit instructors come from like teaching other classes and then having an interest in learning more about anatomy. Because lit was made by a physical therapist, she sort of went through the lens of physical therapy and was like, if we change this a little bit or do it this way, like I think it'll feel better for people's bodies, and then educated teachers on how to do that. So in some ways, I feel like I don't know, like I could not have said what you just said. I'm like, I actually don't know, like what came henceforth beyond and prior. But I land within vinyasa.
Where did you do your yoga teacher training?
It is a virtual training, and it's called LYT, which is for Laura's yoga training. It was created by Laura Hyman, so
it was like you really focused on like the anatomy aspect during your training. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
My yoga teacher training, we did a lot of like the history, the psychology, the philosophy, and all of that behind yoga too.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I knew any of that.
Yeah. And so like I think sometimes like that's like maybe something I don't have as much depth in, and I can see how teachers who like did what you did and did what I did are like, oh, the ultimate, you know? And then like I guess I'm really curious, Jessica, because I think Kundalini is like in yoga, but like somewhat different. I don't know. Can you explain that to me? Is that jive?
So Kundalini Yoga kind of has lineages coming out of a lot of different places. So some people are kind of freaked out about yoga in general because they're like, that goes against my religion, right? And there's this whole controversy of, is it Hindu? Is it religious? Is it this? Is it that? And there's a really interesting article that came out called Bhajan's Yoga. The roots and content of Kundalini Yoga is taught by Yogi Bhajan. And the reason that that research article came out was because of all the controversies over, is this legitimate? Is this not legitimate? And the conclusion of the article is pretty much that a lot of this is ancient practice, so old that, you know, it wasn't even recorded when it began. It was passed down verbally. Some of it was secret. And then some of it is like new agey, and new twists were put onto these older practices. So there is ties to Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, New Age. There is so many elements, but I think what makes it, what is a cohesive element is we don't shy away from the spiritual. We don't shy away from meditation. We don't shy away from mantra, breath work. Kind of what you're saying about there's this static and then there's this flow. In Kundalini Yoga, there's something called Kriya. And with the Kriyas, it's like, this is the rhythm of it. This is what you're doing for this desired effect. And it's not really appropriate or safe for you to have a lot of creativity and freedom within that. But there's hundreds of Kriyas. So you have creativity within what you're choosing. You have creativity within your warm-up before your Kriya, how you put together which meditation you're going to do with your set or Kriya. But it has a lot to do with your energy flow. And yeah. So you have any questions on that?
Kind of. So it sounds like it's like a system that has like lots of elements, and you sort of like plug in the ones that you want to like use to create an experience. Or like, I guess like when you're planning a class, how do you go about doing that? Is there an objective?
Yeah, so I have lots of books, from my teacher's manuals to just other manuals that have come out. And for example, a Kriya or a set may be about your liver, or it might be about back care, or it might be about emotional release, or it might be about letting go of negativity and fear, or it might be, you know what I mean? Like there's so many different categories, and depending on what it is, the experience is going to be very different. So with most yoga types, it's like, oh, well, this is restorative. This is always going to be relaxing. Or this is energetic. This is always going to be, leave you kind of sweaty. And, you know, all of those can fit in Kundalini Yoga. There might be a set that's so slow and meditative, you're tingly and falling asleep. There might be a set that's so rigorous that you're like, holy crap, I'm going to be sore for a few days. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just so vast. So there's a lot of variety in what you can choose. The only thing that you can kind of modify is you can shorten the times. So like in teacher trainings, we might do something for 5 to 31 minutes. In a regular class, maybe 1 to 3.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can shorten the times, but I don't want to alter the sequence. Because if I alter the sequence, that can have a negative energetic effect.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
So there's an intention behind the sequence, and you don't want to lose that.
Or if I do it different than how it's prescribed, I could be messing with your energetic.
Don't mess with my energy.
I don't want to like set you up. And some people, like if you Google on the internet, like, oh, Kundalini Yoga isn't safe, it's scary, it's dangerous. Well, yeah, if you're making it up, or if like, you know, the meditation says never do this beyond 11 minutes and you do it for 2.5 hours, yeah, you might get spun out because you're not being considerate of this is what our experience is and this is what works. And you're like, well, I'm going to do it my own way.
That makes sense.
Okay, well, good luck with that, you know, but if you're following it as prescribed, it's like medicine. Right? The doctor says take one and you take the whole bottle. Yeah, you're going to get pretty sick.
Yeah.
But if, you know, I don't know, the opposite of that, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, that makes sense to me. Do you feel like there's something similar like that for you, Mallory, with what you teach?
It depends on how you approach it. So especially in the West, vinyasa is very much used just like as exercise. You know, people will come into a vinyasa class and they don't want any sort of spirituality brought into it at all, which is why I also teach hatha, because I like that side. So I like to do like one hatha class a week where I can sort of get more into that. And then the vinyasa, most people in the West are like, I just want to sweat and I want to work out. Like hot yoga is like not a thing in the East. That is very much like a westernized thing. So I don't feel like I'm going to mess up anyone's energy when I'm teaching vinyasa specifically, because people are not coming in there with that intention anyway. They just want to get a good workout. But if I were to teach a class that I knew, like, you know, the clientele was into that, then I would focus a lot more on like, so like at yoga teacher training, we had to do like peer teaching, and we were having a lot of wildfires going on in Portugal at the time. And the smoke or the air was like so thick and heavy, and it was like hard to breathe the last few days of yoga teacher training. And I had the peer teaching the last day for vinyasa. And because I knew my audience and I knew that we were both like, we wanted the spiritual aspect of it, I set that intention of like, okay, this flow is going to be specifically about like bringing on the energy of rain. So I did set that. So I think that you have the option to do that if you're intentional, but in vinyasa, it doesn't happen often in the West.
That makes sense. Yeah. So I'm thinking about how Jessica's talking about like a structure that if you like leave it, it gets weird, right? So like I'm gonna piggyback off of that I think that's really important in lit. Like we always do really important things at the beginning, and then as you progress, like cool, if we get through this entire flow, awesome. But we're putting the things that are gonna help you the most at the beginning. And we always take it not so much from a spiritual one, but like if I align your physical body in a certain way, then you have the ability to access like that energetic flow. So the beginning of the class is a reset. Like I would never, like I will teach classes that are only a reset, but I will not teach a class that like surpasses the reset. So in a way I feel that like same, like I must do it a certain way. Or I'm not setting people up for success. But they're also, I can also relate to you in that, like, I could teach an entire class where I'm like, today is all about your pelvis and your hips, and I could never talk about spirituality. But I feel like I know that by, like, moving the body, we're, like, giving people some spiritual, like, assistance as well, which... I don't know. Like, I guess that's what yoga is to me. It's the like somehow connecting the body, the mind, and the spirit into this like experience that you don't get in other types of exercise.
Right.
So I guess, I don't know. Do you feel that? Like, do you feel that like, whatever like method of yoga you're using, like the yoga is about accessing all that at once? Or do you think that there's like a different experience that you have when you're practicing or teaching?
I think it is about that. I just think a lot of people who come in to do yoga, especially vinyasa, don't know that.
Amen.
So, you know, the vinyasa is based on, are your guys' yogas based on like the 8-limb path, or is that just a vinyasa hatha thing?
I feel like I have like a little familiarity, but I couldn't tell you about it now.
So it's basically like, so starting from like, if you set it up like a tree and you start at the bottom limb and you go up and you work your way around, Like the first one is like the yamas, which is just about like self-control, like just controlling your life in all areas. And then the next one is like niyama, which is like your morals and how you like treat your things, how you treat yourself, how you treat other people. And then you have asana, movement, pranayama, which is your breath, and then pratyahara, which is oh gosh, I think it's like letting go of like, or like the loss of like your senses. And then you have Dara, which is concentration. Then you have like Dhyana, which is meditation. And then you have, oh my God, Samadhi, which is, you know, like enlightenment, like bliss when you're in that deep state of meditation. So you're like, you know, you're supposed to like do all of those and use all of those things within yoga, especially starting with like the asana, connecting the pranayama, the breathing, and then like getting into that state of just bliss in your mind. That's what you're trying to achieve through yoga. But I think a lot of people come in there and they're like, I just want to get a good workout in. Like they don't understand that's what they're doing when you're staying with like this yogic breath, like the in through your nose, out through your nose sort of a thing. So yeah, I guess there always is a little bit of a spirituality in it if you're aware of it. And then in hatha, I am pretty particular about at the end of the sequence. So like I'll start with the sun salutations, and then towards the end, the last movements you'll do are like working through the chakras up to down. You know, you'll do like headstand for the third eye, then you'll do, or for the crown chakra, then you'll do like child's pose for the third eye and like work your way down, and then you end, you know, in your shavasana, and people don't realize that like that's what we just did.
Right.
Unless I'm specific about, okay, so this is why we're doing this, you know, this time. And you do that in Kundalini as well, right? But you work from the bottom up with the chakras, correct?
Usually, yes. There was one thing I was going to say, though, when you were talking, about how, like, when people come into yoga. So, usually I find there's 3 reasons people come into yoga. It's, I want to be more flexible.
Yeah.
I want to be more fit. Or my doctor said I should do this and I need to be more mobile, right?
Yep.
And really, what I have found and what I've studied about why yoga even is a thing, it's to prepare you for meditation.
Yes, definitely.
So like if you work out all the kinks and you get your body aligned, then you can sit in meditation.
Yep.
You know? And so a lot of people, when you ask just for fun, why do you do yoga, or what's the point of yoga? You're going to hear, I want it for flexibility, for strength, for, you know, to lose weight or whatever. It's like, well, it's actually to,
and it will get you more flexible for sure.
Those are not things that they're definitely benefits of doing yoga, but I don't think that's why yoga was created.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I know that it was like developed by monks, you know, like you said, so you can sit for hours and hours and hours in meditation. And I'm telling you what, I never used to be able to do like long drives without having to stop every 40 minutes to an hour and get up and move around and stretch. And now, like, since I started doing yoga, I can sit for hours without pain and discomfort from doing that movement if I practice yoga before I go on the drive.
Right.
That's real.
And after.
Yeah, for sure.
I know one of the questions in here is, do you practice yoga every day? This is a good one. I feel like there's so many ways to approach this.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, in some form, I definitely meditate every day, and that is technically yoga. You know, if you're just meditating, that is yoga. But yeah, I mean, I definitely move. Maybe I don't do an hour flow. Maybe I don't do a half-hour flow. But I like move in a way that stretches me and gets my body ready for the day. Like yoga, I can't just like lay around and not move all day. I'll feel really not good.
Yeah, similar. So I definitely have a goal of meditating every single day. Sometimes I miss, but I try to meditate every single day. With my physical practice, it's really okay. So once I started doing yoga in the late 90s. I can safely say I've never gone longer than like 2 weeks without doing yoga. And the reason is because I feel it. I'm in literal pain if I do not do yoga. So I try to do like 2 to 3 times a week at least, a minimum. Before COVID, I was teaching like 6 to 8 classes a week, taking like 2 to 4 classes a week. It was awesome. And then everything went. And during that time, I was getting my art therapy master's degree. And so most of my work now is more art therapy than yoga. But I still feel like if I don't move my body, whether it's yoga, dancing, walking, doing something, again, I'm in pain. And like the older I get, the more it's like, if you don't move it, you lose it. And I would rather feel the freedom of having like a healthy body than like a tight, restricted, uncomfortable, achy body. So I guess what I'm saying is I need to do more. Yeah.
We all need to do more yoga.
Even yoga teachers feel like they need to do more yoga.
Yeah. It's easier to do more yoga when you're like teaching 8 times a week.
Yeah.
It's harder when it's like, no, you just do it. You do it on your own. Like, this is something you have to do.
Right.
So.
Right. That initiation is tough, I think, always.
What about you?
I am going to echo that when I was teaching like 4 classes a day, I did a lot of yoga. Like, I was constantly preparing. I was like, my whole day was great. But then things change. So I think I've felt some seasons happen where there are times where I'm like, yoga is like what I need right now. And I will practice every day. But I think like on average, it's several times a week. I get like a 30-minute, maybe an hour class. But I think there's this idea that I've heard where, and you basically said this, that like yoga isn't just what you do on the mat. It's kind of how you respond to things and like manage yourself throughout the day. So I do think on a daily basis, I'll notice like, ooh, I've been sitting at my desk and my neck has been like this, like my chin jutting forward. And I'll start to like feel that like, woo, discomfort, like mentally and physically. And then like, that's when the yoga kicks in and I'm like, I'm going to go stand up. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to like somehow counteract like this experience I'm having. I've felt that with breath work as well. Like maybe I'm in a situation, I get kind of anxious and I'm like, okay, what can I do to help myself in this moment? I think it also gives me pause in observing other people differently. Like if I see other people getting like anxious or worked up, like there's like this moment now that maybe didn't exist before practicing yoga where I'm like, oh, I see what they're experiencing. I'm going to like have a moment to like manage my own response, but then also maybe I can change what we're doing or how this interaction's going so that we both feel better. So yeah, I think that question's really interesting because I think yoga happens all the time once you have practiced it often enough for long enough. And it doesn't look like like getting my yoga blocks and like doing a big thing all the time.
Yeah, yoga means union. The translation of the word yoga is union. And I think people think yoga means movement, but asana means movement. So like you said, how you're interacting with people and changing up the way the dynamic is going, you're in like union with those people. So that technically is yoga. Anytime that you're like really focused on what's going on in your mind, your body, and your soul, you're bringing those things together. That's union. It doesn't, we don't have to be like in the splits on a yoga mat.
Yes.
Right. And it's the art of awareness, like what you were talking about, like being aware of what needs to happen. I was at the dentist the other day and the drill,
oh gosh.
So automatically my shoulders go up, I tense up my body, and then I'm like, wait a minute. I'm aware of what's happening. I'm going to breathe deeply and I'm going to consciously try to relax my shoulders.
Yes.
I don't have to be stuck in this state of tension and anxiety. I have the choice to become aware that this is happening so that I can start to use my tools that I learned to release and relax and let go.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
My experience with breath work has been, I can get myself out of pain, like pretty significant pain just by breathing into the area of my body that has pain. And before yoga teacher training, you want to ignore the pain. And then after I realized, or Doreen and I realized, oh no, if you focus on it and breathe into it, that's what actually helps it go away.
Because you're acknowledging it,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, what are we going to do here? Yeah.
It's almost like embracing it, because I feel like I used to shut off and ignore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my body would, like, try to say, like, hey, excuse me.
Yeah.
What you're doing hurts. And I'd be like, whatever.
Too bad.
It sucks to be you. Like, I've got stuff to do. But like embracing that, like being like, oh, my left toe. Oh, that's my right toe. My left toe hurts. Like, oh my gosh, what do you need from me? It's so nice.
You?
Yeah, like please tell me more.
How can I support you on your journey?
Yeah. Oh.
And people wonder why yoga teachers are kind of weird while we talk to our toes. Okay?
Hey. Aw.
Nice.
Let's see. This for you listeners. I'm seeing what else is on the queue. Yeah, we want to.
Well, I have the questions here. What was your training like?
Ooh, juicy. Okay.
Love
All
this
right. one. Well, I'll start. So, my training was virtual, which, I mean, I feel like when I say that out loud, like I still feel kind of like, that sounds like it probably wasn't as good then, right?
Controversy.
Yeah, like boo. But honestly, it was the best educational experience of my life, and I think there are several factors that played into that. I signed up for training during quarantine, so my work had said stay home. So I was at home. I had like just all the time in the world, it felt like, because we were kind of off our hamster wheels. So I had a lot of space to do the training. And I think if I had done a virtual training while doing all the things and juggling my normal tasks, it wouldn't have been great. But because I had the space, the way that the curriculum was set up was that we practiced and like learned by doing, and I could like feel the changes in my own body and the way that I was existing. It was very palpable to me, and that helped me connect to like what I was learning and understanding the anatomy, and like the more technical like whoa things became a lot less scary. And by the time I was done with my certification, I actually felt confident teaching other people, which I can't say for many other things I've done. Like I'm a collector of like learning, and I like teaching. And so like I've done these things in a variety of settings. And I always would be like, I guess I know enough. Like, here we go, everyone, woo. But like with the training, I really felt like, okay, because I at least understand that this is so complicated, the way the body works, that I cannot capture it all at once. It almost like took the pressure off. I was like, I get that, like, I understand this much and that this little nugget could be helpful for someone, but I'm not responsible for like the entirety of everybody's everything. So I felt good saying like, this is what I do know. Here you go. And that was really great. Yeah. How was your training?
Oh, God. Mine was just like absolutely transformational. I mean, it was.
Sounds like we're talking about birth a little bit.
Oh my God, no!
So I mean, that's accurate.
It's
I can get with that.
Say that. So I did it in the mountains in Portugal, and there was like 18 women. It just happened to be a training where no men signed up. And we literally like referred to the room that we did yoga in, which was like kind of it was like half outdoor, indoor type of thing, like overlooking like a mountain and all this beautiful land, like in the middle of nowhere. Like we called it like the womb. Like we were in like our little like safe womb, and it was so safe. And it was the best experience of my life. Like a lot of like letting go happened, a lot of tears, a lot of laughter. You know, I made 17 friends who are going to be some of my best friends for life. We all keep up on a WhatsApp group still. I learned a lot. I did 200 hours. It was like 28 days long.
When was it?
I did it in July, end of July into August of this past summer. Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect it to be what it was. So I got a scholarship, which is why I chose like the school that I did. And I knew it was like a reputable school. You know, I knew it was with like the Yoga Alliance. And I got a scholarship to go. So I'm like, okay, that's what I'm doing. But I didn't really do a whole lot of research on it. So I didn't go into it knowing that it was very spiritual and very philosophy based. And I got there and I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting. Because I didn't have like a whole lot of a spiritual base at all when I went. And it just like totally changed my life in so many ways and like redirected my path. And I didn't even know if I was going to teach yoga. I went to yoga teacher training because I had lost a ton of flexibility when I got into bodybuilding. And I knew that like, okay, I can either just go start doing yoga more often on my own, or I can go to like a yoga retreat, but that's not going to break down like the techniques behind all the movements. And I could possibly be doing them wrong. And form is so important. So I knew if I went to a yoga teacher training, I would learn all of that, which I did, but I didn't intend on teaching yoga. And I just loved it so much. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to teach this. So yeah, yoga, oh man, I want to do the 300-hour like soon. I just like, I mean, it was so much on my body. I really want to do it again. I'm not a vegan and we did that for a month and that was so hard for me. So doing the 300-hour, it would be the same thing again, you know, but I'll do it eventually.
Okay. So I actually did not ever have the intention of being a teacher. I started doing Kundalini Yoga my third year of college. So I think I was like 19-ish and maybe 19 or maybe 19. And it was so transformative, like from the first class. Like I was going through a hard time, a lot of transition, a lot of life change, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of just crying. And when I went into my first class, it was like the clouds parted, the sun is shining, and people are like, who are you? And I'm like, I don't know, but I love it.
That's great.
And so from that point on, I took classes at least once or twice a week for like 7 years. And when I graduated, I kept with my teacher. And eventually she's like, I'm going to be out. I'm going skiing or whatever. Can you sub for me? And I'm like, I will, but it feels inappropriate because I'm not a teacher. And then eventually she's like, why aren't you a teacher? You should do this. And I'm like, okay. And then I looked into Yoga Alliance and she's like, don't do that. You're a Kundalini Yoga person. Do the Kundalini Yoga training. And I'm like, okay. So that's through KRI, which is the Kundalini Research Institute. And it's like an international thing. And the way I did it, so you could do the intensive like you did, where it's like you're just in this thing for a month. But with my family at the time, I had I think my son was like maybe 1 or 2. And I mean, I didn't really work that much, but with the family dynamics, I just couldn't disappear for that long. So they have a lot of options where it's just like 1 weekend a month for a year. Sometimes it was 2 weekends, but so I did the thing. I signed up for it. I got a dad scholarship. He helped pay for it.
Nice. Love that.
And when I got there the first weekend, I cried. I was just like, do you ever have that feeling where you're like, this is too right? Like, this is where I belong. This is where I should be. And it was kind of in this woman's basement, but she had this yard that was kind of foresty and everything was so like weird and like mystical and crazy. And I'm just like, these are my people. You know, like every time I do a training, I'm like, I belong here. Like, I relate to you guys. You are my people. So I did that for the year, and then I started teaching, and then, like I said before, Kundalini is so vast, like you'll never know it all. And like a lot of it, just trying to read the book hurt my brain because it's like learning a new language. And not only do they talk about the postures and the anatomy, but they talk about the spiritual anatomy with the chakras and with the bodies, and they talk about diet, and they talk about, I mean, they even have chapters in there about how to take care of your hair and your skin and like food you eat and how you live your life and breathing. And I mean, there's just so much. So eventually I'm like, I'm ready to learn more. And they have what's called the level 2 program, which gets you your 500 hours, which I've done. And there's 5 modules, and each module is like 60 hours or something like that, which translates to 6 full days, which is usually 2 weekends, and then like 90 days of home practice where you're checking in virtually. And it's awesome. It was awesome. Like at every training, I feel like I transformed and evolved a little bit. And I always, when I would leave the studio room or where we practiced, I'd be like, am I forgetting something? And I'd like look around. I'm like, I feel like I'm leaving something. I was leaving some shit. Do you know what I mean? Like energetically, I dropped a lot of things. And I'm like, I just feel like they're like, you're not forgetting anything.
Yeah.
Don't look for it. Just let it stay here. You know?
Oh my God. Yeah.
You know?
It can be so powerful. Like we had this one particular like ceremony that we did. So it was kind of structured the same every day. And the last thing that we did was after dinner was like a ceremony. And the first 4 days were about like letting go. And, you know, we all like a lot of people, especially women, carry trauma like in their hips. And like the 3rd day, I started experiencing the craziest, like excruciating hip pain I've ever had. I like was up all night long with this crazy hip pain. Finally like fell asleep, had some really weird dreams like about my hips. The next day we did this letting go ceremony and my hips were still like really, really hurting, and it was a breath work ceremony. And that is when I discovered like the breathing into the pain is what helps it release. And man, before yoga teacher training, I was not a crier. I cried maybe 3 times in the last 3 years.
That means it's working.
Yeah.
I was bawling. I just felt all this stuff releasing from my hips. And then after that, like I haven't really had hip pain since. And I just cry all the time.
Yes.
Well, and I tell
crazy.
people in class, like, because we do some weird stuff in Kundalini. Like,
Yeah.
like even some of the postures, they're just weird. And I'm like, it's okay if you laugh. It's okay if you cry. It's okay if you feel nothing. It's okay if you get angry. Like, it means the energy is moving, you know? So, it's good.
Speaking of leaving things behind, is there anything you want to leave behind at this podcast? Any parting thoughts?
If you are into yoga and you just do it for the exercise, I encourage you to look a little deeper. If you're not into yoga, you know, maybe give it a try.
I like that.
I will say, as a teacher, it's important to continue to learn.
Yeah.
So, like, when I was talking about how I used to teach all those classes and take classes, like, I need to be a student too, you know, and I'm forever going to be learning and growing. And I think that, if you don't teach, definitely take. But if you teach, don't be afraid to take.
Oh, yeah. I love taking yoga as a yoga teacher now. Like, I like it more.
And to learn from other people, you know, and all the different styles and all the different, like, little ideas and things. You're like, oh, I didn't think about it like that. That's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've been learning for, like, over 20 years, and I'm still learning, and it's exciting and fun.
Yeah, I think the only thing I can add to that is there's lots of little bits and things out there to try. And if something doesn't make sense for you at the time you try it, maybe it will later. Maybe there's something else. Like, you don't have to love all of something to bother doing it at all. Thank you so much. It's been fun talking to you. This is the first time I've seen other Mallory in person. So
No, we
that's
met
exciting.
one other time.
Oh, we
One
did.
other
It was
time.
in passing.
Yes. It was at the wellness thing downtown, like in October or something, or September.
My bad. Excuse me.
I'm forgettable. What can I say?
But yeah, it was really nice to hear everyone's everything. Thank you so much. Tune in for the next episode, whenever it may be. We love you, dear listeners.
Hey.
Signing off.
Yep. Toodles.
Thanks again for listening. Follow or subscribe to get notified when new episodes come out, which will be every 3 weeks. If you're in the area, stop by GVST and check us out. Have a great day and be safe.